Let's get this morning started. Hi, if you're popping in for part 3 of the Joshua tree that I have been trying to figure out and create, well, I did it, so here it is. Hi, my name is Carol, artist of Only Trees, and let's get this Joshua tree finished. Okay, so this is where I started. 24-inch lengths of 20 gauge antique copper wire. I used 30 strands and I bent them in half and made a few branches because the Joshua tree doesn't have a whole lot of branches. This Joshua tree that I'm creating was for a very special customer looking for this particular piece, and I kind of just wanted to do it spot on. After creating the branches and the root system, this is what I did to create help me out, guys, the fallen leaves that droop down as the new growth of the Joshua tree grows upward. Okay, here we go. And I'll be doing a voiceover talking you through what I did. Okay, here we go. I'm using 5 strands of 22 gauge wire, multiple colors, just to kind of match my trunk system and my root system that I have already started. Taking these 5 strands and putting them into the root system, bending them over to locking them in place. I want to wrap around the tree right at the bottom of the trunk and at the top of the root system. And one more time around. Keeping the wire nice and tight. For some crazy reason, I'm having a hard time holding all of that in place. But I want to make sure that I have my wire locked. And this is where my loops start to come in. So I want to cover where my root system is. So I'm going down about 1 inch with 1 strand of wire. That will start to cover my root system. Taking that wire, wrapping it around to lock that 1 wire in place. I'm doing 1 wire at a time just because it is hard to get it started. Once you get it started, it becomes a lot easier. But this first wrap, taking the wire going down about 1 inch and then bending it back up, placing it up where the other wire is, and then taking that wire and wrapping it around the tree to lock that loop in place. Taking another piece of wire, bringing it down, and then back up, and then wrapping all the way around the tree. And I have 1 more piece of wire here, I think. Bending down back up, and wrapping around the tree. This, I have to say, is a very long process, but the effect that you're going to get, I think if you watch the end of this video, you'll really understand what I was trying to complete. Those first 4 loops are done. Yay! All right, now we have more wire to deal with, so we're just going to continue doing this step until I run out of wire. So here we go. 1 wire down, back up, and wrapping around the tree. Another wire down, back up, and my loops that I'm doing are still about 1 inch long. And then wrapping it around that tree. And making another loop. Wrapping that around. Making another loop, going back up, wrapping it around. It does look messy, doesn't it? Hang in there with me, guys. Making a loop, down, back up. Making a loop, down, back up, and wrapping that wire around the tree to lock everything in place. Now that I've gotten it started, this is where I'm going to take my loops. 1, I'm going to make 2 loops, 3 loops, down and back up, 4 loops, down and back up, and wrapping it around to locking those loops in place. So it does get a little bit easier after you first get started. Moving my hand around the tree, more loops, down, back up, down, back up, another wire, down, back up, another wire, down, back up, and wrapping that wire around to lock those loops in place. Just popping in to see if you're still with me. I know it is tedious, but like I said in the beginning, it is tough to get started. But once you get that flow, it does go so much faster. You can make your loops. If you're using 5 strands, 6 strands, you make those loops and then wrap. Go to the next set, do those loops, and then wrap that wire nice and tight to keep everything locked in place. I did take a break. I worked on that for quite a while and then went outside and got this shot just to give you an idea of what it started to look like. Doesn't this look cool? I know it's a lot of wrapping, it takes time, but I think it's so worth it. All right, next step. Okay, for this branch, I'm using 4 strands of wire. I folded 3 of them in half. And I'm getting right in there where the beginning of this branch goes up. I want to lock them in place. So I'm taking one of the strands of wire that I have with the 3 loops when I bent my 24-inch length strands in half. So I already have those 3 loops made, but I need to lock them in place. So I'm taking that extra piece of wire, wrapping it around that tree branch. Okay, holding on to it, want to bring it up so you can see it. Locked those 3 loops in place. I'm going to take another piece of wire, separating them all because they get tangled after a while. I don't know why. I'm pointing to one of the farthest wires to make that next loop. Holding it in place. Bringing another wire down. About 3/4 of an inch, not quite as long as I made at the bottom of the tree. And the lengths can vary. Your loops sizes can vary, anywhere from 3/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch. Varying them really does a nice job as far as not all of the leaves that are fallen down lay right on top of each other. So making your loop size is not real important if you want to keep it between 3/4 of an inch to 1/2 an inch for each loop that you're taking down and bringing up. And then of course, making sure that you wrap that wire around nice and tight to lock the loops that you've just created in place. If you're still here with me, God bless you guys. This is tedious, but it's the same thing all the way around. Don't forget to move with your branch that you're creating so you can get the loops on all the sides of the branch that you are creating. When you run out of wire, you're just going to start it all over again using the same steps. Repeat, and leave wire at the top of each branch so you can now add on the green, which is the new growth of that Joshua tree. Just about at the top. And I want to just double wrap that wire to make sure that everything is locked in place. At that point, I cut off the camera, finished off the rest of the branches, and this is what I got. Now, I didn't get the top done, but I wanted to go back outside into the sunlight so you could see what I have completed so far. Quite a few hours to create all those loops to make those branches kind of hairy looking on that Joshua tree. In the next step, I took my pliers and I crimped most of those loops to make the loops long and skinny shaped. After that, it was to make the plumes, the green growth, the new growth on the Joshua tree, and I will show you how I did that. I hope you'll stay tuned. Now, most of the loops that I created were in pretty good shape, but I did go around and crimp some of them to make them look long and skinny instead of looking like loops. Any stranglers that I had, I just turned them up inward and put them in towards the center of the tree. The next few steps are for the plumes, and I just wanted to show you before I got into it. I used these pliers, the pliers that have a hook on the top of it. I think you can see it. That's what I used in this next couple of steps. I think they would be called ring splitters. Your guess is as good as mine, and you probably know even more so. A lot of people who do jewelry use these pliers. Okay, here we go. Of course, I made loops using 24-inch lengths. I used teal, green, and peridot. Splitting those loops, making it didn't matter what color went where, splitting all of the loops up, and this is where the pliers came in. What I did was use the hook and I pulled from the center of the loop straight out to make them look long. And then I crimped them. Pretty easy, right? So I made 2 sets for each branch. And this is what they look like after they're crimped. Now to add them to the top of the Joshua tree. All of the extra wires that I had on top was a wonderful idea. I'm so glad I didn't go to the tippy top. I took my crimped leaves that I just created, took 2 pieces of the wire that was sitting on the top of the branch that I created, twisting those pieces nice and tight in there, and then bringing them up while pulling the leaves out that I'm making towards me, and then wrapping around that branch completely. For this set, I took the branch underneath that one leaf, wrapped again, continue wrapping around back underneath that first one, wrapping it around till I didn't have any more wire left, and then taking the end of the wire, the few strands that were left on the green crimped leaves that I just created, took a few more pieces of wire that I have left on the top of the Joshua tree and twisted them in place. This wasn't too bad either. So now for the second strand. basically the same thing I did with the first strand that I have attached already. Taking a couple pieces of wire left from the top of the Joshua tree, twisting them in place using my needle nose pliers to make sure it's nice and tight. Bring the green branches towards me, bring the twisted pieces that I just did up towards the top of the tree, and then wrapped around the green leaves, the green crimped leaves around until there was no more green to wrap. Trying to be a little, what's the word I'm thinking? Strategic of where the placing of those crimped leaves were going, so that there was some all the way around all the sides for the plume as I am creating it. I think one more time around, and then taking those little strands that I have left on the crimped wire, taking a couple pieces of wire from the top of the Joshua tree, twisting them, locking everything in place, pushing everything upward, and then I want to twist all of this wire to kind of make it look like it was all one piece. So splitting all those wires up and then twisting them around. I even take my needle nose pliers eventually. There you go. I knew I was going to pick them up sooner or later. And then twist nice and tight. Make it all look like one wire. Kind of neat. All right, Carol. I think you twisted it enough. Yeah. And then taking the wire cutters, and I cut probably about 3/4 of an inch down, maybe a 1/2 an inch down, and just snipped off all of that top wire. Just like that. After that's done, what I want to do is, I want to twist it a little bit further. Make sure I got it tight. But what I'm doing here is lifting up those crimped green leaves, or what you want to call the plume of the Joshua tree, upward. Going around, strategically placing them so that the green is all the way around that brown area that I had just clipped. I think this is really starting to look out really cool. I hope that after watching this video, you might give this a try, this Joshua tree. The last thing I wanted to do for the plume is to kind of shape it. If you look at the Joshua tree, the the plume that's at the top of the Joshua tree, you will see that it kind of fans outward. And basically, that's what I was doing here. Taking a few of those crimped leaves and then fanning them out. There you go. Couple more pieces. You guys have been great through this whole video. I thank you if you got to this point and you're still watching. This certainly has been fun, trial and error after a few times, but so worth it. There you go. Almost looks like the top of a pineapple. 25 minutes into this video and you are still here. You are a trooper. Okay, in this next set, I did complete the tree. I put it on a dogwood base for this customer. The shape of this Joshua tree was what the customer was looking for. And I was just so excited that the whole thing worked out. So next video is the tree complete. It was windy out this morning when I took this, and it looks like we were headed in for a storm. But take notice to the root system. It was covered by those loops that we created for the Joshua tree. It turned out great. Deep breath. You made it to the end of this video. I thank you for taking the time to watch this. I hope if you enjoyed this video, you'll give me a thumbs up. If you're interested in learning how to create realistic wired trees, I hope that maybe you'll hit that subscribe button and hit the bell. That way you know when I put up a new video. And until then, guys, I hope that you're having an awesome, awesome day. And we will talk soon.